and teach the nature of this world and the other worlds. So that is the wrong view that creates the unwholesome karma, a strong unwholesome karma. And I think one has to see the classification of this type of view as an unwholesome, unrighteous course of conduct against the Buddha's time, the background of the Buddha's time, where there was a general belief, a presupposition, that a good person, a virtuous person, is one who accepts the working of the law of karma and accepts the idea of rebirth into other realms. And so if a person explicitly denies this, particularly if they say that there's no point in doing any good deeds, any charity, no point in looking after, even after one's parents, no point in observing precepts. When you die, all that's left is the body. When the body gets buried, it just turns to dust. Everything finished. And one's good or bad deeds all gone away. Okay, that would be the unwholesome course of action. But nowadays we have people, who were brought up on scientific background. They might say, I don't see any scientific proof for the continuation of mind or consciousness beyond death. And so I don't believe that there's any personal survival of death. But they can be very good, very ethical people who still believe that one should be generous and helpful to others, that one should observe principles of nonviolence, that one should be conscientious member of one's community. So if they deny karma and rebirth, but still uphold the basic code of ethics as a result of moral reflection and reasoning, I don't think that their view would be a type of unwholesome karma. Okay, at this point I'll ask whether there's any questions on this. Okay, please take the microphone.
Wasn't there a teacher during the Buddha's time who actually did teach what you just described, what I would call nihilism?
Yeah.
So is it possible that this is kind of also a pointed denial or jab at that teacher?
Yeah, so I don't think that this is intended as a kind of personal jab at that teacher, but the Buddha rejected that teacher's view because, again, against the background of his time, that kind of view was seen as undermining one of the foundations for morality. And in fact, that teacher, the way his view continues, you find this in Sutta number 7, his view explained at length in Sutta number 76 in the Middle Length Discourses. He goes on to say that those who teach the doctrine of giving, who praise the virtues of giving, those are fools. That a person lasts, that when the person dies, their sense faculties just completely stop functioning, the mind faculty just vanishes into space, and they praise the person while they bring him to the burial ground, and then after the burial, after the cremation, all that is left are ashes. And so then he says, the wise and the foolish after death perish and are annihilated and do not exist anymore.
So did that particular teacher, do you know, basically teach, like, so eat, drink, and be merry, and do whatever you want?
It seems so, though all we know about that teacher's teaching, because no records have survived apart from what has come down in the Buddha's text. And so that's really all we know about his teaching. But he seems to have been something like a materialist who held that what exists in reality are just the material elements, and mind or consciousness is just a byproduct of material elements. And so when the material elements that give rise to life, when they cease, then mind or consciousness completely stops. Okay. Candy, you have down here? This way.
Do thoughts which is greedy but not harmful to others create karma?
Yeah. Say again?
Do thoughts like which is greedy but not harmful to others create karma?
I see. Yeah, the thoughts that are thoughts of harming others, but that are not so strong as wishing them to meet harm. Is that what you mean?
It's greedy, but it's not harmful to others.
Oh, I see. Greedy thoughts that don't harm others. They create karma. They create unwholesome karma, but the karma is not strong enough to serve as a basis for generating the rebirth into the lower realms. It's only when the greedy thought takes the form of wishing to get the possessions of others that it is strong enough to take on that role of creating the new rebirth. Let's see. Okay, so he says, this is actually a comment. It seems that the wrong sexual conduct in early Buddhism is that which causes physical or mental harm to the parties involved, including legal guardians, or that break a law or a covenant between people. Yes, that's a good point. Then the Buddha's golden rule emphasizes self-restraint. Do not hurt others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Yes, also a good point. Interesting. 8 followed by is converted into the sunglass icon. I don't know what that means. Oh, 8 followed by a closing parentheses is converted into the sunglass icon. But what does that have to do with the class? Okay, let's go to the other side of the teaching now. So now the Buddha is going to teach the 10 kinds of good conduct. Good conduct of body, speech, and mind. So he gives the general statement, paragraph 11, then he moves into the detail, paragraph 12, with the types of good bodily conduct. Okay, here someone abandons the killing of living beings, abstains from the killing of living beings, and has laid aside the rod and weapon, that is the instruments of killing. Now, in the good types of conduct, there are actually 2 aspects. Okay, now we could just one is called varita. Varita means refraining from or abstaining from. The other is charita. Charita means, again, it's from the root charity, to act. So we could call this positive action or virtuous action. So the varita aspect of the first type of wholesome conduct is abandoning and abstaining from killing and harming living beings. Then the charita aspect, the good aspect, or you'd say the positive aspect, is being gentle and kind and being compassionate to all living beings. Then we come to the second. The varita aspect is abandoning the taking of what is not given, abstaining from taking what is not given, and not taking by way of theft the wealth and property of others in the village or in the forest. But actually some other suttas say that one dwells honestly, one lives honestly, pure in heart. Okay, then abandon the third principle. The varita aspect of restraining is abandoning and abstaining from misconduct and sensual pleasures, not having relations with all of those types of women that are mentioned. And elsewhere, the positive aspect is said to be remaining what is called satisfied with one's own wife. But we could generalize that and say remaining satisfied with one's own partner. So these are three types of bodily conduct that are in accordance with the Dhamma. Then four types of verbal conduct in accordance with the Dhamma. Here, okay, the aspect of varita, someone abandons and abstains from false speech. Then when somebody is called as a witness, he says what he knows, what he has seen, without any kind of false speech. So speaking truthfully, we can say, is the positive aspect. Which doesn't mean that one has to speak the truth even if it offends other people. But one should always try to speak the truth when it doesn't offend anybody, or when it's the right time and circumstances for doing so. Okay? The next one, abandoning and abstaining from malicious or divisive speech. That's the aspect of refraining. Then the positive aspect is said one reunites those who are divided, a promoter of friendships, one who enjoys concord, rejoices in concord, delights in concord, one who speaks words that promote concord. Next, abandoning harsh speech and abstaining from harsh speech. That's the aspect of restraint. The positive aspect, one speaks words that are gentle, pleasing to the ear, and lovable, as go to the heart, courteous, desired by many, agreeable to many. Then the next one abandons and abstains from gossip or idle chatter. And the positive aspect, one speaks at the right time, speaks what is fact, speaks on what is good, speaks on the Dharma and discipline, speaks words that are worth recording, reasonable, moderate, and beneficial. So these are the four kinds of good, wholesome verbal conduct. Then three types of mental conduct in accordance with the Dhamma. Okay, someone is not covetousness, and he does not covet the wealth and property of others. He is without ill will and free from intentions of hate. And instead he wishes, may these beings be free from enmity, affliction, and anxiety. May they live happily. And then the 10th, he has a right view, the view that there is giving, offerings, and charity. There is the fruit and result of good and bad deeds. There is this world and the other world. There is mother and father, or in other words, service to mother and father. There are beings who are reborn. There are good and virtuous recluses and Brahmins who understand the nature of this world and explain them to others. Okay, so these are the 10 types of good or wholesome conduct, the types of conduct that are in accordance with the Dhamma, righteous conduct. Okay, now the Buddha ends the discourse by showing the benefits or fruits of the 10 types of good conduct. He says, if one who observes conduct in accordance with the Dhamma, righteous conduct, should wish after death, may I be reborn in the company of well-to-do nobles, the kshatriyas, the aristocrats, it is possible that he will be reborn in such a way. If he wishes, may I be reborn in the company of well-to-do Brahmins, in the company of well-to-do householders, it is possible that he will be reborn in that way. So he has, we call this a store of wholesome karma, of virtuous conduct, and that virtuous conduct is the kind of karmic fuel that can propel his consciousness into the realm of rebirth, where he wants to be reborn. And so if one forms a strong aspiration to be reborn as a human being in good circumstances, then if one has sufficient karmic merits, then those merits will direct one towards that realm. Okay, if one wants to be reborn in the company of the Devas, and here the Buddha goes through the 6 sense-sphere Deva realms, the 4 great kings, the heaven of the 33, the Yama gods, the Tusita heaven, the gods who delight in creating, the gods who wield power over others' creations. Those are the 6 sense-sphere heavens. One could be reborn in those realms. Okay, if one wants to be reborn in the form realm, starting with the gods of Brahma's retinue, up through the gods of the Akanita realm, one needs as the basis the 10 types of wholesome karma. But that is not sufficient. In order to be reborn in the form realm, one also needs the power of meditation, the power of samadhi. So the basis is virtuous conduct, the 10 types of virtuous conduct, but you have to use fortified fuel. It's not enough just to have the ordinary fuel, but it has to be like, do they have, when you get gasoline, super? Is there something called ordinary gasoline and super gasoline? So this is like super gasoline. 10 types of good conduct is the basis, but then they have to pump in and treat it chemically with the power of samadhi to get to the form realm. If one wants to be reborn in the realm of infinite space, the realm of infinite consciousness, the realm of nothingness, the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, through the 10 types of wholesome karma, one can be reborn there, but that has to be reinforced or strengthened by the superpower of samadhi. That is, as a human being, one has to develop the formless meditations. Okay, then paragraph 43, the Buddha brings in the highest aim. He says, if one who observes conduct in accordance with the Dhamma, righteous conduct, should wish, may I realize for myself with direct knowledge, here and now, and enter in the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom that is taintless with the destruction of the asavas, the destruction of the taints or defilements. It is possible that he can realize this liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, right here and now. Why is that? Because he observes conduct in accordance with the Dhamma, righteous conduct. So even for attaining nirvana in this very life, the basis is the 10 courses of wholesome karma. But to reach that, one needs more than just the 10 courses. One needs the super power of the Noble Eightfold Path. One needs also samadhi and then insight or wisdom to cut off all the defilements. Or in other words, one needs, the whole Noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right action, the right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, mindfulness, effort, concentration, and effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Okay, so then when the Buddha finished speaking, then the Brahmins, householders, express their appreciation and they go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In other words, a happy ending. Okay, any questions now on anything in the sutta? Gary, do you want to take this?
As we go through the sutta here this morning, one thing that strikes me is it almost seems that this is where vows are born.
Yeah.
We can take that into bodhisattva vows too. And also conduct and the bodhisattva vows. It seems as we read through this, it's very striking that one can take on specific vows and be, along the path.
Yeah, that is actually so. In fact, there's a sutta that comes much later in the Middle Life Discourses where the Buddha explicitly says that if one wants to be reborn in a particular realm, one can make the aspiration to be reborn in that realm and constantly dwell on that, but then one has to sort of strengthen that resolution or aspiration with, I think he mentions 5 factors: faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom. In a way, those are almost like predecessors of, almost like paramitas. And so it's the vow or aspiration together with the power of certain spiritual qualities that those sort of encompass the aspiration and they could direct the consciousness there. And take the there's
a long way around.
Yeah, we need a canal. The library table canal.
I've always been troubled by the rebirth as a wealthy person.
Yeah.
I know it's a complex question, but it has been used as a justification for social iniquities. That poor people are looked upon as people who have earned the suffering and hunger and strife.
Yeah, I have to admit that I find that somewhat troubling in that respect too. The way I see it, at least the way I explain it to myself, like I don't, have any aspiration to be reborn as in a family of millionaires or millionaires. But I would say that it's good to have the aspiration to be reborn at least under suitable conditions, so that under favorable material conditions, so that one is able to meet with the Dharma, and so one is free from, let's see, the crying desperation of material need that will direct one's whole attention just to getting enough food, to getting the shelter, to get clothing, to live in a country which is free from the ravages of war, even though we're living in a country which is responsible for a lot of warfare right now. Maybe, Richard, do you have something
Well,
to say?
yeah, I agree with that. Then I wonder why would the Buddha put up with admiration for the rich when the rich are withholding from the poor what the poor need to survive, and they're just squandering it on luxury?
Well, also, don't forget that the Buddha praises always generosity, giving and generosity. So maybe he sees that as a way to balance out the inequalities and standards of living. And also, probably in the Buddha's time, well, I don't know, there seem to have been quite sharp differences in living standards.
Well, I mean, in India now, there's fabulous wealth next to absolute poverty. I mean, people dying of malnutrition. And for most, for Hinduism, does not mandate anything against that. There are some Hindus who are quite generous, but the problem with generosity and charity is that it means that the poor have nothing of right. They have nothing that they can expect, or that they can demand, or that they're entitled to, whereas they simply become dependent upon the arbitrary generosity of the rich. And so that there's no possibility of social justice there. So why admire the rich? Why, when someone says, well, gee, I want to live a good life so I can be reborn as a wealthy person, why would the Buddha put up with that? Why would he say, well, I don't regard that as a worthy wish?
I would what?
I said, why wouldn't he say, I don't regard that as a worthy wish, as a worthy desire?
Yeah, I have to say, I find this a little bit troublesome too.
Can I consider those are stepping stones that I don't think I can achieve the final goal this life, next life? That food is not a problem, that I can practice more. It's just a stepping stone.
But the problem is that if at least people that get very rich become infatuated with their wealth, they're not satisfied with it. So my aspiration would be just to be sometimes like middle class, but also sometimes poverty, if it's not utterly brutalizing and degrading poverty, can be a spur for people to develop their better faculties, the faculty of being diligent, energetic, persistent, patient, hardworking, and then to work themselves up and in this way they will develop certain qualities that can then be directed in a spiritual direction. It's good if the people who are speaking take the microphone. Maybe Patricia, you want to?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your teaching. It wasn't until I had almost no money that I truly had compassion for people who have no money. Until I had my own experience of something that I really knew what it was about. So I'm very happy that I wasn't born with a lot of money, although I did inherit quite a bit of money, but didn't know what to do with it. Because I didn't have a background of knowledge about having money in this lifetime. Until I had no more money, then I had the questions about what should I have done when I had money. So it goes around and around like this. But I'm very grateful that I don't have that money because of the wonderful experience I've had seeing how it is for other people that have no jobs and no food and no clothing, which is a million times worse or less than what I have. So I think it's all a teacher for us, whether we have a lot of money or not. And I think if we look at the benefit of what we learn as an abundance rather than the amount of money we have. And I know many, many people who are very, very wealthy, who are very, very good-hearted, but their experience is different, so they can only do what they know. So,
Neil, did you have something related to it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that from other things I've read, and I can't cite anything, that my sense of the Buddha talking about the advantages of wealth was always hand in hand with that that people who are blessed with good fortune have the good fortune to be able to help those who don't have good fortune. And I think, I'm assuming, I don't know, but that in the time of the Buddha, I'm sure there was greed, but I don't think it was to the degree that we have today, because there wasn't the kind of wealth that we have today. And I think it probably was part of the culture that those who were fortunate helped those less fortunate more often than not.
I think that they were both. There are some texts which speak about how the Kshatriyas and Brahmins are not satisfied with what they have, how they are plundering one another, competing with one another to get more and more wealth, how the greed is insatiable. So it's a little bit like we have today. Except the point that you make is that the Buddha does speak in other suttas about how a person should use their wealth. And then he speaks about that they should invest a certain amount in their business, use a certain amount to provide for their own material well-being, a certain amount to provide the taxes to the government, to perform certain duties to the relatives. Then another portion, a substantial portion, is used for giving, for generosity.
And those were equal portions.
Yeah. But I have to say that this way of teaching, it does lead to, at least in what I've observed in Sri Lanka, the idea that the rich are people who must have done good karma, and the poor are people who have not done good karma. And yet, well, if I look at the rich people, really rich people in the United States, there are some who are good, but others who are just insatiable and unscrupulous. And often one finds poor people, like poor people in third world countries, traditional countries, often have much more loving kindness, much more generosity, much more sense of care and compassion for one another than the rich people who have all of their material needs met.
Even in the United States, the IRS reports that the rich give a smaller percentage of their income than the poor.
Okay, I think we'll have to leave anything further, or we could have a discussion after the class. Maybe we'll do it in the Kuan Yin Hall. I don't know whether the tables are set up, but we could just sit on the mats and discuss any further questions. And then next week, we have the class, the 18th, also the class will be here in the library. And next time I'll try to do 2 sutras. This is number 45 and 46. Anyway, I think as far as making wishes for rebirth goes, just my own personal opinion, not to make a wish to be rich, to be famous, to be powerful, or anything like that, but just make a wish to encounter the Dharma and to be able to practice and study under suitable conditions, and then to be able to teach and spread the Dharma to others, or to work for the Dharma in some form. That is the best kind of wish. And if you make that wish, then if your encounter with the Dharma is going to come through being very wealthy, that will occur. If it's going to come by struggling with poverty, that will occur. If it's by being famous, that will occur. If it's by being despised and neglected by others, that will occur. Just sort of let one's path unfold according to the laws of nature, but keep the wish to meet the Dharma and to practice in life after life. Keep that foremost in the mind. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. Okay, so we share the merits with the Devas, the Nagas, or dragon spirits, the Bhutas, the fair spirits, and with all beings in general, wishing them to be well and happy, and to protect the Dharma, to protect the world. Akasa ta chumata deva naga mahidika punyanta anumodikva chiram rakantu manum param. Akasa ta, no, I lost my mindfulness. Okay, akasa ta chumata deva naga mahidika punyanta anumodikva chiram rakantu desanam. Akasata chagumata deva naga mahidika punyanta anumodikva chiram rakantu manparam. Etavadacham hehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe devan modantu sabba sampati siddhya. Etavadacham hehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe bhutam modantu sabba sampati siddhya. Etavadacham hehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe satanu modantu sabba sampati siddhya. Bhavagupadaya vichiritato etantare satakai upapanna rupeya rupecha asanya sanino tukha pamuchantu pusantu nibuti